Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
In the heart of our wildest, most untamed places, there are secrets the forests keep forever. Stepping into the unsettling silence, backcountry rangers often feel a sense of peace, like they are coming home. But when a secret takes shape, it morphs into a story not just of disappearance, but of a void that swallowed a protector whole. In a place of breathtaking beauty, there is also an air of ancient, indifferent power. This wasn't a casual stroll gone awry. These rangers know the woods like the back of their hands. Every hidden trail, every treacherous ravine, every mountain and granite wall is accounted for, and they know the best locations to find the perfect jaw-dropping sunset. Yet, one moment they were there, a beacon of safety in the wilderness, and the next, only an echo remained. For the rangers who share their watch, the disappearance wasn't just a mission. It was a cold dread seeping into their bones. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer. Every familiar sound of the forest became a potential clue or a chilling warning. They weren't just searching for a person. They were confronting the unnerving possibility that the wilderness itself had claimed one of their own. This wasn't just a case file. It was a punch in the gut. Every snapped twig, every rustle in the undergrowth, every silent mile hiked through the dense forest was amplified by a chilling question. Are we looking for a survivor, or are we looking for a body? Welcome back to Tragedy with a View. Hi, I am your host, Kayla, and before we start, I want to mention that we do briefly mention suicide in this episode a couple of times. So please, if you are struggling, contact the suicide hotline. You can do so by call or text at the number 988. And I also got a really nice comment from someone saying that, in short, I have too many pauses in my sentences, and it really can come from a combination of things, and sometimes those pauses are really hard to edit out. Or taking the pause out just amplifies the start of the next part of the sentence. Anyways, this is the kind of feedback that I love to receive because this tells me directly how I can make the episodes a better listening experience for everyone. So hopefully this one sounds a little bit better and a little less pausey. And I'm going to try really hard to lessen those pauses from here on out. And I would love for more of you to let me know what you think of the flow moving forward, or if there's anything else that you notice that you're like, this could really help make this a better process, I would love to hear it. And then also, just as an FYI, I think the next 2 months, I'm going to be mostly doing this as a solo podcast. Again, just because there's a lot of things on my plate. If you listen towards the end of May and early June, you would have learned that Sam and I are trying to buy a house, and the house we wanted didn't work out, but we are still actively looking, and it's rough out there for anyone else who is also house shopping, and this isn't anything that we didn't already know, but life is life, and sometimes things get more complicated than we originally thought that they were going to be. But then outside of that, Sam and I also have our yearly vacation where we just take like a week off of all of our things coming up. I've got a convention that I'm taking my second business to coming up. I'm very excited about both of those things. But just because of all of the things kind of happening all at the same time, and depending on what happens with the house things and how that timing plays out with the convention and with our vacation, some episodes might end up being late. And I'm just trying to give you as much heads up as possible because I don't want you to think that the podcast is going away. It's just so busy right now that it's hard for me to keep up, and I'm doing everything that I can to do so. And eventually it's going to settle down, right? Eventually it's going to calm down. But I'm still very excited, and all of this excitement that I feel for the possibilities ahead in my own life are probably pretty similar to the excitement that the backcountry rangers feel as they are about to head out to their post for the season. Their post or patrolling location is so far out that the easiest way for rangers to get to these locations along with their supplies is to fly by helicopter. Each ranger will have several boxes stacked together that includes all of the items that they may need and food for them to eat throughout the season. Typically, the season begins in late May or early June and runs through early September. And as they stand around and wait for the helicopter to arrive to take them to their post, you may look at these people and not think much of them at all. At first glance, they seem like they're a bunch of ski bums just hanging out, but while they are waiting for the helicopter to deliver them to the farthest locations in the rugged national parks, they mingle, reconnect with friends from decades of work together, and learn about those who are new to this location. They are dressed like ski bums, from their sandals with socks to their Patagonia fleece. At first sight, you wouldn't expect it to be these people who are the ones on patrol, the ones who will respond when you call for help in the deepest landscapes the park has to offer. Yet, they are some of the best. They are a special operations unit that love the wilderness, want to protect it and see it thrive, while also helping to keep you safe. And one such ranger is James Randall Morgenson, also known as Ranger Randy. At 51 years old, he was just starting his 28th season with the National Park System, and over the nearly 3 decades, others found that Randy loved his job. At the start of every season, he was excited to be there and to get back into the wilderness. He began working as a backcountry ranger in Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks in 1968, and over the prior 27 years, he mentored others, and many found his energetic and kind personality contagious, much like the area. Many of the rangers stationed in these 2 parks returned year after year, with half of them returning for a decade and some of them having returned for 2 decades. Randy was almost to his 3rd decade, and it is easy to see why. The area is incredibly beautiful and easily sucks people in. Sequoia National Park is located in the southern Sierra Nevada mountains in eastern California, and it is truly a magnificent and diverse landscape known primarily for its giant sequoia trees, which are some of the largest and oldest living organisms on Earth. This park was established in 1890 to protect these majestic trees, and it is jointly administered with the adjacent Kings Canyon National Park, which is why you often hear these parks' names combined as one. The park is home to several groves of giant sequoias, most notably the Giant Forest, which contains 5 of the 10 largest trees in the world, including General Sherman, which is the undisputed star, recognized as the world's largest tree by sheer volume. Standing at 275 feet or 84 meters tall, with a base diameter of over 36 feet or 11 meters wide, it is a sight that can still anyone in their tracks. While impossible to know for sure, the tree is estimated to be around 2,200 years old. Then you have tunnel log, which is the classic fallen sequoia that was cut to create a tunnel for cars to drive through. This is one of those locations where if you tell me you have not seen a photo of it, I just won't believe you. Besides the tree, the mountains are dramatic in both their experience and views, with elevations ranging from 1,300 feet or 3,396 meters to nearly 14,500 feet or 4,420 meters. It is not hard to see or feel why. On its eastern border, you'll find Mount Whitney, which is the highest point in the lower 48 states of the United States. Besides the trees and the mountains, the park encompasses rugged foothills, deep canyons carved by glaciers, and soaring mountain summits. Beneath the surface, the park holds a wealth of marble caverns. There are over 200 known caves, with Crystal Cave being the only one regularly open for public tours. Along its northern border, Sequoia butts up to Kings Canyon National Park, and together they are a stunning testament to the power of glacial erosion and the majesty of the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. While Sequoia is famous for the large trees, Kings Canyon boasts some of the deepest canyons in North America and an extensive rugged wilderness. The park's namesake, Kings Canyon, is a feature that is a dramatic glacier-carved valley more than a mile or 1,600 meters deep. The South Fork of the Kings River flows through this U-shaped valley, surrounded by towering granite cliffs and domes that can reach thousands of feet high. Many compare this beauty and geological formations to Yosemite Valley, which is only 85 miles to the north. And side note, I feel like I could spend 3 months visiting the national parks in the state of California, and it still would not be enough time. Much like Sequoia National Park, Kings Canyon is home to magnificent groves of giant sequoia trees like Grant Grove, which is known as the second largest tree in the world by volume, and it is celebrated with an annual ceremony in December, which has dubbed the tree the nation's Christmas tree. The Redwood Mountain Grove is notable for being one of the largest remaining natural groves of giant sequoias in the world, with over 1,500 mature trees. And with the grove being off the beaten path, it offers a more secluded experience for those willing to hike a little bit farther. Of course, the rugged High Sierra wilderness has a significant portion of Kings Canyon National Park's designated wilderness. This area is designated by several high peaks, standing over 14,000 feet or 4,300 meters tall, with the highest point in the park being the North Palisades along the Sierra Crest. The extensive trail system will take you along portions of the Pacific Crest Trail and the John Muir Trail, leading you to glacial formations, waterfalls, and flower-speckled meadows surrounded by granite walls. This area has very, very few roads passing east to west in the Sierras, at least that are reliably passable, and none that run north to south. There is a span of 200 miles south of Yosemite that runs into both King Canyon and Sequoia National Parks that doesn't have a single road in it. Trails are not maintained as well as in the front country, and in 1996, 14 rangers patrolled the 1,350 square mile backcountry. 2 of those rangers were on horseback and the other 12 on foot. This area is desolate and secluded and perfect for those who desire embracing the wilderness in its most glorious forms. With the seclusion, though, comes different types of dangers, and one of those is the less consistent form of communication with the outside world. And while that may attract many, the cold reality is that if something goes wrong, that communication could be your downfall. To combat this as best as they could in the 1920s and 30s, hundreds of miles of telephone lines were strung across the area so that the backcountry rangers, who would have to go through lineman training, would be able to climb the closest tree or telephone pole, tap into the line, and then hand crank a message to headquarters in the event they needed assistance or spotted a forest fire. 60 years later, with the advancements in technology, the lines have been removed thanks to improvements in radio contact. But still, that contact was spotty at best. And this was honestly something Randy loved about the park. With far less people being in this area, he spent a lot of his free time collecting litter, and he would often carry sacks full out of the woods at the end of his season. Having grown up in the area, he spent a lot of his younger years in the backcountry, whether that was carrying gear for the incredible landscape photographer Ansel Adams, or being a winter ranger in Yosemite's Tuolumne Meadows. He loved to be as far into the wilderness that he could get, and he made great friends doing this. George Durkee, for example, was a Nordic ranger in Badger Pass, which is a ski area in Yosemite, where the two were able to get to know each other and would later reunite as backcountry rangers in Sequoia and Kings Canyon. George and Randy worked well together, and in 1994, they received an award for their response to the rescue of 2 climbers, especially with how they kept their cool when the rescue helicopter was caught in a gust of wind that nearly caused the helicopter to collide with the granite rock right where they were assisting one of the climbers. The rescue in the end was a success, but their climb out became treacherous as well. Once the climbers were safely in the helicopter, George and Randy began to climb out when a rock the size of a softball was knocked loose by George. It collided with Randy's helmet, which saved his life. The next day, George and Randy were relaxing in the meadows together, reflecting on the prior day events, when George said, "It's a great day to be alive." To which Randy responded, "Oh, I don't know. The least I owe these mountains is a body." And Randy had a way with words. Not only was he an incredible wilderness ranger, but he was also a writer. He kept a journal full of words that struck the hearts of those who read them. He was looked up to by many and even referred to as the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the high country. In 1996, the job of a backcountry ranger doesn't look that much different than it does today. They all have responded to calls and responded to people who have fallen and gotten hurt, people who get stuck and need help, people who have suffered from a medical event, and people who just aren't using their common sense. such as the time a couple in their 20s got stuck at a creek that was too aggressive to cross. They called for help by using their emergency locator beacons, which means that the rangers don't know the nature of the emergency, just that they are activated and where to go. Ranger Lo Laness responded, and after hiking for several miles with oxygen and a full trauma kit, she then felt it necessary to ream them out, explain what a real emergency is, and then she led them to a safer crossing that was just a little ways down the creek. Rangers' education is often overlooked, as many have master's degrees in forestry, geology, computer science, philosophy, and sometimes even art history. They've worked as teachers, photographers, ski instructors, winter guides, filmmakers, anything that gives them the summer free to spend their time barely making $1 in the wilderness as a backcountry ranger. They are on call 24/7 as law enforcement, medics, search and rescue, recovery specialists, wildlife observers, and historians to anyone they run into. They would set out in any kind of weather to find lost hikers, provide medical care to those who need it, and sometimes even scare off a bear that gets too curious about hikers. They pick up trash, put out illegal fires, and give citations to those who refuse to listen. And their days would be ruined when a call came in for their help, only to find that they are recovering a body in the end. But the frustration doesn't end there. Backcountry rangers are seasonal, which means that they are hired and fired each year. They receive no benefits, no days off, and in 1930s, they were called 90-day wonders. The job is tough, and it takes a special kind of person to come back to it again and again and again. For Randy, this was the perfect job for him. He was great at finding lost and missing hikers. He seemed to be able to read a topography map like a book and be able to determine what a person would do in response to the terrain. Once a Boy Scout took a wrong turn and got separated from his troop. When the search began, Randy looked at the map, and after several minutes, he pointed to a meadow and told them to take a helicopter there in the morning, that the boy was going to be there. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. And while he thrived in his work, things in his personal life had taken a turn for the worse by his own doing. He had been having an affair with fellow ranger Lo Laness, and when his wife, Judy, found out, she left him and served him with divorce papers right before he left for the season in the backcountry. Upon his return to the park, many were seeing this depressed side of him and had a hard time contemplating why. After all, Sequoia and Kings Canyon was an area that Randy absolutely loved, though George was worried about his friend. Randy had confided in George that he was having suicidal thoughts. Not seriously, he insisted, but they were there. George hoped that once Randy got to Bench Lake, he would liven up. The Bench Lake Ranger Station was Randy's post for the season, and this is a key point of reference for serious backcountry hikers and backpackers. It is not a visitor center, you cannot drive to it, but a wilderness outpost that is deep within the park. It is situated in the upper South Fork Kings River region of Kings Canyon National Park, located at an elevation of about 10,744 feet, or 3,275 meters. It is located just about a mile east of Bench Lake itself.
We are Castles and Cryptids, where the castles are haunted and the cryptids are cryptic as fuck.
We're a couple of Canadian chicks who are fascinated by freaky shit, so join us as we fall down numerous rabbit holes.
Numerous, so very many rabbit holes. Fortune telling. We talk true crime, cryptids, haunted AF stuff, and much, much more.
There are definitely some movie tangents in there too, because we love our horror movie chat.
Crucially, it is positioned at the intersection of the Pacific Crest Trail and John Muir Trails, which run along the same lines for a period of time, and the Taboose Pass Trail. Accessing the Bench Lake Ranger Station can only be done by strenuous backcountry hiking. There are no roads leading to it, and the trails are difficult to say the least. As a wilderness ranger station, its primary function is to serve as a base for park rangers in the backcountry. This includes wilderness patrols where rangers patrol the surrounding wilderness, ensuring visitor safety, enforcing regulations, and monitoring the conditions of the trails and the environment. This is not a full-service visitor center, though rangers can provide up-to-date information on trail conditions, weather, the wilderness regulations, and can be a crucial source for backpackers. Rangers may check wilderness permits to ensure hikers have the necessary authorization for their overnight trips, and in case of emergencies or search and rescue operations in that remote area, the ranger station serves as a vital point for coordination. Make no mistake, though, there are no restrooms, water spigots, or stores at Bench Lake Ranger Station. It's a rugged outpost for rangers, not a public facility for resupply or extended stays. Backpackers must be entirely self-sufficient, and Randy liked it that way. At the start of the 1996 season, there was a bit of a delay thanks to some storms rolling through the area and grounding the helicopters. But by mid-July, all the rangers were at their designated stations. On July 21st, Randy stepped out of his station, pinned a note to the door outlining that he was going for a 4-day patrol. He tied his boots, grabbed his walking stick, which was really just an old ski pole, and set out into the wilderness. The night before, he had checked in with headquarters, which was required every 24 hours, and that was the last time he was ever heard from again. The night of the 21st, a thunderstorm rolled through the area. Booms that sounded like they could crush mountains left everyone on edge, with lightning flashing across the sky, and the land was doused in fat drops of rain, washing away the footprints that Randy had left behind. It wouldn't be until 4 days after his last check-in on July 24th that a search was finally initiated. The delay was likely due to giving a grace period since the radios don't always work, but Lo Liness, the woman who he had been having an affair with, commented saying that nothing ever happens to rangers, so no one was surprised by the response time being slow. And side note, at the beginning of this season, Lo and Randy were no longer seeing each other, which probably just amplified all of the distress that he was feeling. But even with a delayed response, an intense physical and emotional search began. Of the 6 rangers in Kings Canyon, Randy was missing, and the other 5 abandoned their post to search for him. Randy Kaufman acted as incident commander on location. He searched through Randy's logbook and journal to see if he could find anything that might indicate where Randy had gone. And as others searched, he asked questions like, how far could Randy travel in a day? Did he prefer to camp in the wooded areas or out in the open? Would he take a scrambling route or an easier pass? And if anyone remembered Randy mentioning a place that he wanted to see, they needed to speak up. In the front country, Dave Ash, the Sierra Crest Subdistrict Ranger, organized a different headquarters at the Kings Canyon Fire Station to be an easier contact to communicate with public resources. He helped to create a map of a zone that they believed Randy could travel in 4 days, which encompassed 80 square miles. And while we would love to look at a map and have a nice, neat circle that shows the entire search area, that is not the reality in the mountains or in this particular terrain. There are drastic inclines and declines in the location that would dictate where that line was set in a particular direction. At the fire station, Dave would also look into Randy's finances and found that his bank cards and credit cards had not been used, indicating that Randy was still in the park. Dave also contacted many emergency response groups, including the California Rescue Dog Association, volunteer SAR teams in the area, the military, and he had the California Highway Patrol placed on standby. He emphasized that this terrain was dangerous, off-trail, and complicated. He was looking for quality in searchers, not quantity. When Ranger Rick Sanger got the call that Randy was missing, he stopped what he was doing and hiked through the night to reach the Bench Lake Ranger Station. He found the note on Randy's door stating that he would be gone for 4 days for a patrol through the backcountry. By the time that this was found, Randy was already overdue. Ranger David Graber also responded and was worried about Randy's mental state. He had been one of the rangers that noticed the severe decline in Randy's enthusiasm and noted that Randy just wasn't finding joy in conversations he normally did. David knew that Randy was passionate about sustaining the foliage, and when he brought up a study on the fungus that was killing white pines and a way to stop it, Randy responded, "Why bother?" Trying to move on, Dave brought up flowers, which Randy also loved. And when he did so, Randy said, "I don't find much pleasure in flowers anymore." It didn't set right with David, but there wasn't much for him to do at that time. Randy was in a hard place, and he felt like he just needed some time to himself to process all the changes that was happening in his life. Randy's friend George Durkee was cutting a fallen tree when he heard the call. He was stationed at the LeConte Canyon Ranger Station, which was far enough away that he would need to travel by helicopter to reach Bench Lake Ranger Station. He was at a tree 40 minutes away, stopped what he was doing, and ran back to his station in 20 minutes to grab 3 days' worth of food and supplies, and then he went to the designated helicopter landing zone. At the station, George was also worried about Randy's mental state, but felt a bit more at ease when he found reading materials that had notes and marks which implied Randy was not done reading, indicating that Randy didn't leave the park purposefully or commit suicide. Though it was hard to determine exactly how long Randy had been missing for, since he did not check in for 4 days, and there were known locations that had no radio reception. To narrow down what to do next, a secret ballot was performed where each person would look at the map that had been divided into sections, and they would give a percentage to each location on where they thought Randy would be. The higher the percentage, the more likely they thought that Randy would be there. The rules were simple. You could not assign 0 to any of the segments because that would imply that you know that the missing person is not there. And there is also a section for the rest of the world, for if you believe that the missing person was not in the search area at all. The search area included, again, 80 square miles of thick brush, ravines, lakes, rivers, caves, mountains, and high-altitude wilderness. Usually areas this large were reserved for aircraft that had crashed, but Randy was different. He worked these lands for his entire life. If there was anyone who could travel that distance in 4 days, it was him. By July 27th, 3 days later, the search expanded to include helicopter flyovers, search dogs that would find a scent only to have it disappear. Dozens of volunteers arrived, and 100 search and rescue personnel combed through the park's terrain as best they could. Rangers who knew him well were worried about the potential that he had harmed himself or had a run-in with someone who didn't want to follow the rules. Just the summer prior, Randy had 2 instances where a rock climber and then a horseback rider reacted hostile towards him, so foul play was not off the table. There were questions about if he had fallen and gotten hurt, if he had been swept away in a river while trying to cross it, or if a rock collapsed and had pinned him to the ground. Others questioned if Randy had just up and left the park to start a new life, but those who knew Randy did not let that idea run away. They knew he loved the landscape too much to abandon it. But after 13 days of searching, with question after question going unanswered and not even a footprint being found, the search was halted. Interestingly, Judy, Randy's wife, received a letter after the search had been called off that was postmarked for July 23rd. Which was before he was known to be missing and he was still in the backcountry. She was confused by this, but it is likely due to Randy asking someone to mail it, and it didn't get done as quickly as planned. We all know how slow the mail can go. Shortly after the search was called off, a backpack with some gear was found near a ravine that matched what Randy normally carried, and a little farther away, a boot with a leg bone protruding out of it was found. Soon after this, a park radio was found at the top of the falls that led to the ravine the backpack and leg were in, but none of these items were conclusively linked to Randy. After 1 year and no answers or flickers of resolve, the National Park Service pronounced Randy dead. Randy was a mystery, and what happened to him would forever be etched in their minds. Questions would bubble to the surface, and some accepted that they would never find out what happened to Randy. But they would get their answers sooner than they thought. Almost exactly 5 years after Randy went missing, on July 15, 2001, 4 off-duty California Conservation Corps trail building crew members had gone off-trail to seek out a waterfall inside a ravine. Here, 19-year-old Peter Martinez was walking along the creek at the base of the waterfall. At the base of the waterfall, when he noticed some bones hidden amongst the rocks. Dental records would confirm that these bones belonged to James Randall Morgenson. Depending on the source, and therefore theory you listen to, some say that he drowned after being swept over the waterfall, and others say he became injured after falling through a snowdrift and succumbed to hypothermia. No matter what theory you decide to go with, the rude reality is that the ravine was just above Willow Peak Lake. When comparing the location to the GPS data collected during the search for Randy, the gorge had been missed in their search by about 100 feet. Willow Peak drainage area is known to have snow bridges into late July, which raises the question, was Randy alive and suffering when the gorge was missed? Could he have been saved? Maybe, but maybe not. Again, the search encompassed a huge area of difficult terrain and much of it was off trail. While the questions exist, it is not the searchers' fault. In memory of Randy, Mount Morgenson was unofficially named after him. The 13,920-foot or 4,245-meter tall mountain is officially identified as Peak 4245-meter or 1,320-plus feet. It is in the Southern Sierra Mountain Range and is located just north of Mount Whitney and one peak west of Mount Russell. The view from the peak allows you spectacular perspective of Wallace Lake, and for the few who do climb to its peak, a summit register has been placed, though the signatures are small in volume. Due to its proximity to Mount Whitney, the tallest mountain in the lower 48, the peak is often overlooked, and it is difficult to get to. With no trails, no parking, and an overnight stay just to reach the base, it is a challenge for those who are dedicated to the wild and love to be in the wilderness. If you choose to stay the course, though, it offers some of the best views in the area, just like Randy knew it would. Thank you for listening. We'll talk next week. Bye. What is life without close calls with disaster? Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow the podcast to be the first to hear the now weekly episodes. Join our subscription on Patreon, Apple, or Spotify today and immerse yourself in the haunting beauty of the great outdoors. For around $4 a month, you'll get exclusive access to the first episode of each month and early access to all other episodes, showcasing the morbid and mysterious side of nature. Please reach out with story requests, and if you have your own story, please email tragedywithaview@gmail.com for a chance to have your story featured on a later episode. Again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.